The Bible describes two kinds of women. The Hannah type, Esther, Ruth, and the virtuous woman described in Proverbs 31 are all pious, courageous, intelligent, and fearful of God. According to the Bible, this woman is far more valuable than pearls and rubies. Then there is the wicked woman. That's the person I want to discuss today. We should be mindful of the three ungodly women mentioned in the Bible. Before we get started, though, let me simply state that the Bible warns us against the destructive power of wicked women on multiple occasions. Proverbs 9:13. According to the Bible, the stupid lady is agitated and boisterous in the Amplified Translation. She lacks any timeless knowledge and is gullible, easily duped, and careless. According to an ungodly woman in Proverbs 21 verse 19, it is preferable to live in a desert than with a tense and unruly woman. On Proverbs 11 verse 22, the Bible refers to the godless woman as follows: "As a ring of gold in a swine's snout, so is a beautiful woman who is without discretion. Her beauty is mocked by her lack of character." The Bible makes a clear distinction between a godly and an ungodly woman. Let's now examine some of these women's identities. Herodias will be the first woman we examine. John the Baptist took issue with the fact that Herod Antipas was married to a woman named Herodias, but the two had previously divorced. Their marriage was publicly condemned by John the Baptist, who called it adultery. We learn in Matthew 14 that John had earlier chastised Herod by telling him that his relationship with Herodias was illegal. For her sake, Herod had him imprisoned. Now, being found guilty of sin must not have pleased Herodias. Actually, John the Baptist's reprimands infuriated her. She therefore made the decision to act independently. When Herod's birthday arrived, however, the daughter of Herodias danced in front of the guests and won Herod over, so he swore to give her anything she asked for, according to Matthew 14:6-8. She said, "Give me the head of John the Baptist here on a platter," at her mother's insistence. I want you to see how Herodias was so overcome with resentment and rage. Herod vowed to grant her every want after her daughter performed a dance for him. This gave Herodias the chance to exact revenge on John, convincing her daughter to want a dish of John's head. John was beheaded as a result of her daughter complying with her request. Herodias was undoubtedly an unholy lady, as seen by her deeds, which reveal her to be a cruel, resentful, and cunning individual. She didn't care that John was a servant of God. It's hard to understand why someone might be inspired to commit murder by a disagreement or a reprimand from another person. But this is the nature of bitterness. That person's heart becomes cold as a result, and they start acting and thinking irrationally. In order to satiate her vanity and sense of significance, Herodias was able to take drastic actions because of her intense hatred for John, which distorted her judgment. For the simple reason that he disapproved of her behavior, she desired the life of a man of God. And just observe Herodias' malevolent impact. She not only planned to kill John, but she also forced her daughter to take part in the heinous deed. She took advantage of her closeness with her daughter by coercing and pressuring her into making a horrible request that would put one of the greatest prophets' lives in jeopardy. Herodias' actions serve as an illustration of how a wicked woman might exploit her position or authority to do harm. Nonetheless, a godly woman has a good impact on others around her, serving as a mediator and guiding others toward God and the path of righteousness. Delilah will be the second example we examine. Samson and Delilah's story is a fascinating one. Despite having superhuman strength, Samson was ultimately brought down by Delilah. Samson was an exceptionally strong man. However, Delilah's beauty was his vulnerability. And I want you to know how special Samson was as a person before we look at Delilah in even more detail. God gave him a special gift, and he accomplished some very amazing feats. According to the Bible, he used his bare hands to tear apart a lion. He used merely the jawbone of a donkey to defeat 1,000 warriors. What, therefore, was so unique about Delilah that she would overthrow a powerfully anointed man? Let me tell you, friends, while Delilah was a nasty person, she wasn't the main reason Samson failed. The true causes of Samson's demise were lust, sin, and disobedience. Thus, the devil just seized the chance that Samson provided him, and Samson was destroyed by the enemy by taking advantage of his weakness. The devil planted Delilah in Samson's life. Don't get me wrong, Samson and Delilah both committed sin in this story, making them equally responsible. But I want to demonstrate to you how the devil can introduce you to people who seem to love and care for you, but who are really out to get you. Now, according to the Bible's abridged translation, in Judges 16:4-6, he fell in love with Delilah, a Philistine lady who lived in the valley of Sorek. Therefore, the 5 Philistine governors or rulers approached her and told her to convince him, find out where his great strength is and figure out how to defeat him so that we might bind him to conquer him. Each of us would then give her 1,100 pieces of silver. Tell me where your great strength lies and what you may be bound and subdued with, Delilah said to Samson. The first issue is that God appointed Samson to be a judge over Israel. God had frequently forewarned the Israelites against getting married or dating people who weren't Israelites. These women or men would frequently mislead entire families by pursuing idols or alien deities. Samson did not protect his heart now. His sight, not his faith, guided him. He consequently fell in love with a person he was never supposed to adore. He married a person he never intended to marry. Furthermore, Delilah had already set out to benefit at Samson's expense from the start. A substantial sum of silver was offered to her. According to Judges 16:9-12, she had men ambushing her in a private room because her heart was not pure. The Philistines are upon you, Samson, she told him. As a string of toe breaks when it comes into contact with fire, he also broke the cords. Thus, his strength's secret remained a mystery. Delilah then addressed Samson, saying, Look, you have now made fun of me and told me falsehoods. Now please be honest with me about how you might be bound. And he told her that I would become weak and just like any other man if they bound me securely with brand new unutilized ropes. Samson was obviously blinded by Delilah because they were having sex. Red flags in front of him were invisible to him. Delilah tested Samson 3 times and questioned him about the source of his power, and Samson missed the devil in front of him 3 times. Delilah was relentless and a seductress. And I would like you to see how Delilah manipulates this verse in the Bible. Judges 16:15-17. She then asked him, How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? These 3 times you have made fun of me without revealing your greatest strength. He was furious with her for constantly pressuring him with her words and pleading with him. Finally, he opened himself to her and told her that a razor had never been used on his head since, from the day I was conceived, I had been a Nazirite to God. If I shave, I will lose my strength, become weak, and become just like any other man. Finally, Samson loses his anointing after caving in to Delilah. Here are some noteworthy teachings. It's not true that everyone who claims to be for you is. In the same way that the Lord can bring individuals into your life to support, encourage, and raise you. A woman who is well known for being ungodly will be the subject of our 3rd case study. Here is a brief overview of Jezebel, the woman in question. King Ahab was her husband. She exerted a tremendously evil effect on her husband, Ahab. She was a pagan woman who worshipped Azra and Baal, among other false deities. Out of greed, she once made a deliberate attempt to murder the prophets of the God of Israel. She wanted a man named Naboth's land, so she killed him. Nearly 1,000 false prophets ate at her table. However, I wish to draw attention to her qualities. The spirit of Jezebel is frequently linked to promiscuity, sex, and seduction. These, in my opinion, are only a few of the benefits of this spirit. Control lies at the heart of Jezebel and this evil spirit. It captures people and is a dominating manipulator of his spirit. Jezebel's tendency for dominance was one of her most blatant characteristics. This is evident in the manner she dominated her spouse and the religious beliefs of her country. She had no concern for others and used her position of authority to further her own goals. Anyone in her immediate vicinity. A Jezebel spirit is a dangerous spirit that aims to take over and rule someone else. The Jezebel spirit's attempt to dominate or control via terror is another trait. People were terrified of Jezebel, especially after she killed everybody who stood in her way. Elijah fled because he was terrified when she threatened to kill him. Only Satan incites fear. Paul tells us in verse 7 of 2 Timothy 1, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but rather one of strength, love, and clarity of thought. You can discern if a spirit is not God in this way. Whenever a spirit tries to manipulate us by frightening us, it is not God's spirit. Jezebel's disdain for and contempt of authority was her final significant trait. She didn't care for Elijah the prophet or any of God's people since, in her eyes, she was the queen with all the power. After Jesus demonstrated God's omnipotence and strength, she refused to listen to him or change her ways. Just before he gave the order for her to be expelled, she also made fun of Jehu, the military leader of Israel's army. This attitude is also present in our day and age, as some people disregard authority and order in favor of pursuing their own self-interest. What should we conclude from the three situations we just examined? Charm and elegance are superficial and misleading, according to Proverbs 31:30. Beauty is conceited. However, a woman who reverently fears the Lord and worships, obeys, serves, and trusts him, she will be commended with all due respect. The first 5 words ought to be a powerful reminder. Grace and charm are tricks. A lady is not a godly person just because she is attractive and attends church every Sunday. You are not a godly woman based on the pictures you share of yourself wearing your Sunday best. According to the Bible, a woman who fears the Lord reverently worships, obeys, serves, and trusts him with awe. That woman is divine. And when you think about it, influence is basically the ability or strength to be a powerful force. Influence has an impact on other people's opinions, actions, and behaviors. Esther became a strong, wise, and influential lady as a result of God using her. The Lord used her to deliver his people. On the other hand, the devil attempted to obstruct God's work via Elisha by using Jezebel. She was a powerful woman as well, but not the kind of power you should ever aspire to.